There are hundreds and thousands of trainers. Not all of them, not even many of them, are truly profitable. While you may think I'm going to talk about the need for a course for passive revenue and a course before your course or a freebie before your course, and we definitely could, that is funnel talk. But there's more. There's what comes before. There's this inclusive sixth sense, maybe seven based on the title, list that has to be there first. So, what I'd love to know when we finish this episode, if this was helpful, because many of these things are also related to a prior podcast that we've done. I will share it in the show notes. A way to give yourself a grade for the business that you have right now to really look at, are you growing a profitable, sustainable business so that you can thrive as well, not just survive as you run your business? There's a podcast where I talked about it. I walked you through the scorecard, and in that podcast, there is a link to get it. I'll put both there. So you can either listen to the podcast and get it, listen to the podcast and just, okay, now I got the idea, or you can go get the scorecard and keep it on a file. But I would put it in your calendar to say, hey, beginning of every month, especially if you're starting out, if not, maybe the beginning of every quarter, you take that scorecard again. But once you take your score, you use what you've come up with as a score, your assessment, if you will, and dial into what am I going to focus on in the next 90 days to improve my score, improve my business, whether it's profitability, automation, all the things. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to She Means Fitness Business. This is the place where I share marketing and sales strategies that are easy, enjoyable, even fun, and anything but sleazy, salesy, and pushy, so that you can build a business, but also a life that you love. No more painting yourself into a corner, wondering where you're going to get your next client, launching again and again and wondering, what do I post today? We're going to solve all those here at She Means Fitness Business. So the world needs us now more than ever. Let's dive into this episode. So first of all, I'm going to dive right into these 7 aspects or 7 components. And they're slightly different than you may have heard in the past, but they're areas that everybody who's successful is actually doing these. All right. Number 1 is look objectively at the right numbers. This is first and foremost. So if you're in business, you've been a trainer, and I said to you, how much did you make last year? I mean, that is your, like, what is your gross, right? The total amount of money you made. And sometimes that sounds really good. But then if I said to you, what was your net? Like the profit margin after all your expenses, which would include your shoes and your clothes and your equipment and your travel, and hopefully you paid yourself your time, right? What you were worth. You took out all of those things. And, here's the deal. You may think, well, I wear those tights and shoes elsewhere too, but hey, sister, you can't pull one over somebody who tried to pull one over. If you're trying to use shoes and clothes as a tax deduction, you better, count that as expenses. And just saying, in case you were ever audited, those clothes have to be specifically brand entities, like colors that you use for your brand only when you're shooting videos, and you don't wear them on the street. Otherwise, you no longer can count them as expenses. It's a hard line, but trust me, if you live in a household where maybe your spouse makes more than you do doing something different, and your side hustle, your coaching or your training business is like this, you've got to be very careful and walk a fine line, because I know my husband was, he was, first of all, he's a little older than I was. He was much more established in his business when I was just beginning to start mine. And we didn't want to get in trouble. The last thing we wanted was an audit. And we went through it once. even though we did separate accounts and his business was a different audit, but he was the owner, right? So, it all counted against him. And you don't want to go through that. Trust me, that is a process that is like hard sweat you don't want to do. So you have to be able to look objectively at the right numbers. So knowing what they are, the books, your profit and loss statement called a P&L. This is where you've got to start recording. It's a perfect time of year to be saying this, because if you feel like, oh my gosh, I've not done that all year, it's really just kind of a mess. Okay, start. So right now is the time to go, make your visit to, maybe it's Amazon now, or if it's Office Depot or Staples or somewhere, go get yourself a ledger. Make sure that you set it up, maybe in a Google Doc or spreadsheet. So you've got your expenses, your revenue coming in. How much did you pay yourself, right? And depending on how you're taking your money, at some point in your business, you may decide, I am paying myself. Like literally, you're on the payroll. But for now, if you just are the sole proprietor, it's just you, then anything that falls to the bottom line is yours. So you won't have that as an expense. But you got to do the math, right? So you've got to look at the end of the day for all the time you're putting in, not only in session, but planning and writing your sessions. And you're looking at what is your take home, that net. Divide it, right? Do the math. How much is your time really worth versus what you're actually bringing in? It's an eye opener, trust me. So look at your subscribers, the number of subscribers on your email list. How many of them are in and joining, and how many of them are unsubscribing and opting out? You need to know that. Otherwise, you don't know if you're sending the right material, things they value. Look at your sources of traffic. This is all available for you for free in Google Analytics. So if you're not already signed up for Google Analytics, get signed up. If you don't know how to sign up, go to somewhere, whoever is your tech person. If you are your tech person, but you don't know about this, you probably need an upgrade on your tech person, right? Or go into Fiverr and say, look, can you do this? I need you for, a 4-hour project. I need you to set this up for me. I need you to teach me how to do it going forward. And if I ever need to come back to you, I will be back. But that is a very important thing. Where's your traffic come from? So are you sharing on social media? Well, are you getting any traction? If you're sharing a lot and every day on Instagram, but there's zero traffic coming to your website from your Instagram, you better either rethink your strategy, because it's not a good use of your time, or ditch it. Maybe it's not where your customers are. Get to Facebook. Take a look at your traffic from Facebook, from Instagram, from YouTube. Generally, if you're working with women in midlife, its traffic sources are going to be from one of those. Or there'll be direct traffic, which means somebody had your link and they clicked directly to it or directly to a blog. So those things are really mandatory, so you know what's working, what's not. You want to know your return on ad spend. So your ROAS, ROAS, for ads or for your marketing effort, meaning you spend X amount on marketing and you have to include everything. So maybe you've created a freebie, you've had it graphic design on the cover and the book put together in a layout, and maybe you spent $50 on that. And you paid somebody to set it up as, now I have an opt-in and I have a page on my website where they're going to come and they're going to see this, or maybe it's your homepage. And all of that cost you something. And to date, how many people have come to that page and how many people have actually opted in? That could be one very basic return on ad spend, just because you're publishing it, even for free. But now if you start doing paid ads in Facebook or Instagram or in YouTube, Google, then you want to look at, I'm deriving traffic, how many people landed there, and how many people purchased of those people who landed from the ad specifically. So those things, again, if you don't know how to set that up, you want to hire somebody who does. Where do I spend and where do I spend less or stop spending? So the first you could say, where do I spend more? Because it's actually working. So you want to put your foot on the accelerator, right? And get a little bit more from it. I will tell you that it is wisest if you're newer to Facebook ads, you're starting to work with somebody, it's wise to start them really low. It's $8 or $10 a day. And then you watch, how does it do? What's the conversion rate? You get it going and you start, then I'm going to inch it up. Now we're going to make it $15 or $20 a day. And then we're going to see how that does. You will hit a ceiling where if, you started at 8 or 10 and you say, well, I'm going to spend $100 a day because I really want people in before the new year, or insert your own time. That probably will backfire on you. Your ads will tend to be displayed less. It just feels spammy and slimy. You want to very slowly rack things up. So know how you're going to do it, but you can only assess these things by looking at what of your programs sold, what of your source of traffic is the best place to put your money. So if your source of traffic, number one, is Facebook, and you're spending all this time and energy and effort on Instagram, you got to switch it and start maybe spending some money on Facebook. So follow it, know your numbers. And once you look objectively at those numbers, do it every week. So there are certain numbers that I look at every week. Every Monday, I'm looking at how many subscribers do I have? How many downloads on my podcast? And what were my podcast titles? Then in the last week, I'm looking at that too. And we're looking at how many subscribers do we have for protein and fiber? Because, we know people love it if they're continuing to subscribe because it's the best savings for them on a 15% basis every time they order after the fourth month. It's just the best, right? So if they like it, we know. And if we're growing as subscribers, we look at that number. But the big numbers, as far as advertising budget, I look at on a monthly basis with my Facebook ads manager, and she's breaking that down for me. Okay. Number 2 category, right, is train holistically. This is what a good trainer does. So it's more than just movement. Movement is a lot, and that is your area of expertise. But you will have these people in front of you for longer than potentially their partners or spouses do during the given week, depending on the frequency of your training. Think about foam rolling and know it's not necessarily the best way to support fascia. It's an old way. And it's what we've learned. Is it better than nothing? Maybe. But inflicting pain is actually not probably the best way to go about getting it. So look into what else might be. Assess and respond to the hormone status of individuals. And if that's newer to you and you really don't know what to do with signs and symptoms that a woman presents with, and collectively say that and say, what have you tried and what happened when you did that? If that doesn't inform you exactly what to modify, exactly what to suggest, potentially you want to look at the Flipping 50 Menopause Fitness Specialist, because that's what we teach you to do. And you want to know exactly, how do I prescribe exercise, but not as in, here's a one size fits all. If you're in menopause, do this. That's actually not the way it works. I'm going to teach you how to think with the menopause Flipping 50 Menopause. There's a lot of F's. The Menopause Fitness Specialist. This happens all the time when I do podcast interviews, by the way. They're saying, this is Deborah Atkins. She's the founder of Flipping 50, and she wrote the book and then the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women, and they get stuck somewhere with the F's. And it's almost humorous to watch people do it, but it's embarrassing when it's myself doing it. Okay, so those are the big ones there, and that's under training holistically. Just, you've got to realize it's just so much more than the kinesiology of movement. It's also, of course, above the shoulders, like how are they thinking about the movement? What are they doing in between your sessions? How can you support them there? What's the mood? What's the energy level? And sometimes if you're the distraction, I'm a member for the last 3 years, I have had to pay a membership. It was very painful to a fitness center. And this is the first time I never in 38 years had to do that, or 35. And then I moved and I'm like, I'm no longer associated with a club. I'm no longer teaching at a university. I'm no longer like also teaching at this club. I had 5 gyms I could walk into at any given time. I had the key in my pocket. I could use it whenever I wanted to. And then boom, it was taken away. But what it's given me is a chance to observe trainers who have paid between $100 and $120 an hour, and they're distracted. Their energy level is terrible in many cases. And you can just tell. I'm taking golf lessons right now. The same thing happens with my coach. And don't get me wrong, I love him. He's great, but he's probably not going to make it into 2023 with me, because I can tell when he's just on automatic and he's saying things he's said to other people. And I get him a lot of times. I have to do it at the end of a day. So I will say, what's your latest? Like, I'll take the 4:00 slide. And, he's probably done 5 or 6 different sessions with people that day. But, and I can tell he's a little exacerbated or exhausted, better word. Because of the people and maybe the excuses or whatever, but you don't want to be that person. So you want to make sure that, you're in the right spot. You're really standing up and doing better. And the bar is low, friends. You can do this. Okay. So I want you to be able to do this if you want to reach the elite, and that is create simple messages from a complex set of information that might come from a peer-reviewed journal study. Then and I know, we can just quote verbatim whatever it says, but if we don't even understand it, and we would never talk to someone like that, you got to just give it to them in plain English. So, you can put that there, but you got to say, what that really means is this. It doesn't matter as much if you do X, Y, and Z. Here's what's really important. That's what they found. So you want to do a few things under this category, and you want to stop the teach and preach. Make sure that your posts or your blogs or your email newsletters are in the raise and praise category. So if you're saying to somebody, don't be lazy, don't do this, these people, didn't do it. Don't be them. That feels very condescending. If you were telling somebody, how to drink water, the easiest way to get more energy, and you're doing it in a, you should be doing this like your mother would say, it feels like teach and preach, and nobody wants to be in school again. And I know a lot of people like to learn, but truly nobody wants to do it like they did in school. So raise and praise them. Praise them for what they're already doing or trying or attempting, for wanting to learn more, and praise them for that, and then raise them up. It's not your fault. Here's why you might have thought that. Here's what's really true. And the first step you could take changes everything. This makes it a simple message, right? And not a slap on your hand. You also want to lower the barrier to entry to anything that you're doing. So you don't want to make it so hard for somebody to come into your program. So what's the first thing that somebody could do? Just read a blog, listen to a podcast, watch a video, right? They don't have to actually come in, but make them want the next step. Just lower the barrier to entry. They don't have to go all in. They don't have to do strength and do high intensity intervals and change their diet too. What one thing could they do first? Be inclusive versus exclusive. At the beginning, you're really shooting for the wider, broader, bigger target. So important that you're not narrowing it down and saying, this is, only if blah, blah, blah. So you want to include everyone in the demographic. So I don't mean everybody a program. So if you're targeting women in menopause, Talk to them specifically. You might even go deeper than that and talk to women who are just in menopause or postmenopause and were diagnosed with low bone density, whether that's osteopenia classification or osteoporosis. That's a more specific niche. That's important. And be specific to it, but make the barrier really low. Give them a freebie. Let them take one step. Don't make your freebie like a 4-chapter book that's going to take them an hour to read and then not be able to understand. And make it step by step. So again, sometimes a cheat sheet is easier, and on it put step 1, step 2, step 3. And this could take you today. You could do it this afternoon, or you could do it over a week, or you could do it over 3 weeks. Whatever works. You're going to go through those steps and you'll be further and get better results. I mean, make it so simple and think of everything you do just like that, because not everybody is like you or like me, right? We probably jump in, we do things faster, we take care of them. And other people, some are analytic. Some people have been on my list for more than 2 years before they ever buy a program. And they will tell me, I followed you on YouTube since 2013. And then they're buying a program in 2022. I'm like, wow, okay. We don't think the same way. But you've got to realize, don't give up on those people. And don't think just because they haven't purchased, they're not still listening and maybe positively talking to you about you to other people. All right. So far, here's what we've talked about. Looking objectively at the right numbers, training holistically that whole person, and creating simple messages from a complex set of information. Next is breakdown. So this kind of spills right off of the previous one. Break down the what, the why, and the how of information for prospects. I see so often posts about, here's another high protein breakfast. However, somewhere I missed, I needed high protein. And why is that? And what is high protein? What qualifies as high protein? So you might show yourself sitting down and eating and having a forkful or a spoonful or a strawful of something and explain, here's how I start my day. X amount of protein. And then, down below, maybe you share the ingredients because that'll do really well as a post. But then down below in the text, the copy of your post, you're putting the why. Here's why I start my day like that. The science behind why it's so important. So that makes you now more valuable. But if somebody comes in and they feel like, I feel like I missed something, like I don't know why I need high protein for breakfast. I like my oatmeal. Or I, don't know what is high protein, because they're reading everywhere. Well, eggs are high in protein, but compared to what, right? And if they don't know what target they're running to, maybe or maybe not. So know this, you share the why far more than you share the how. So if you're sharing, here's another high protein breakfast, you're kind of sharing how to do it. You want to share the why and the what much more. You can't be a step ahead of them or your new prospects. They won't join you because maybe they don't think or don't believe they need a high protein breakfast. I don't like that, actually. I like my oatmeal. So unless you convince them that what it is they do want comes after they change to this, they won't want it. You've got to have that conversation up front every time, even if you're blue in the face from thinking, I've said this every single time. Demonstrate you doing, and so maybe you're doing the how, but explain the why. And this is another good use of, say you're breaking down a piece of science or research. You're breaking down a tip that will really help them. It might be like drinking water, but you know what? That is so old and worn out that every trainer, every health coach everywhere can share that same tip. Share something unique about it to your audience. Why is that so near and dear to what it is that they want, and getting it will require it? Or what is unique about the way that you're showing them that midlife women need and want over someone else. Okay, next up, be willing to be seen and heard imperfectly. If you're a procrastinator because you think, oh gosh, I didn't put on mascara today, I didn't take a shower today, I'm not ready to do a live today. Be willing not to sometimes. Or don't take the shower. Don't wash your face, but go put on the mascara. And so you can put on a face and go live. You've got to be, ready to go visual. All marketing today is visual. It's photographs or it's video. Video is king, queen, and everything else. Then there's photos and then there's text. You need pictures of you. And don't be afraid to be imperfect. But if you need to be perfect, then schedule the time in to get perfect if that's a part of your brand. A brick and mortar business still needs individual trainers teaching digitally. And so I put this in there so that we're not missing those of you who have studios and gyms who are listening. And this is really important. So you've got to have some kind of a spokesperson for your team. Highlight your individual trainers. Make sure that they're going live, and if they're going live, they're really able to do everything we've discussed here about breaking down content, using the science, making sure you're talking specifically to your niche, and they're in there speaking person to person. People want to buy from a person, not just from a business. All right. So in this next one, there's just 2 left. All right. Spot trends and solve problems. A very profitable trainer or health coach, insert, knows how to spot trends and solve problems. And trends may be things you do or you don't want to jump on the bandwagon about. And you might jump on into the trend and do it, but you might also call attention to the trend and to the fact that we're not participating. And here's why and where we see the problem with this trend for you. That is a fantastic conversation. Someone just today, a friend of mine, actually, an acquaintance, I'll say that, from a large collaborative that I belong to, came on and was talking about mindfulness, laughing. He said mindfulness is trending right now. It is such a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. He said, here's the thing. For the majority of people who are now talking about mindfulness, it's like a passing thing. It's going to be gone tomorrow. It's a trending term, but people are only talking about it because it's trending. And what you should be doing is be mindful in everything you're doing. You don't have to meditate in order to be mindful. We should be mindful when we're parking in the parking lot and it's easy to tell somebody is anxious. They're anxious to pull into the slot that you wanted, or they're anxious to pull out without turning and looking. Just being mindful and letting them do that, assuming you don't know what's happening in their day. You don't know what's happening in their life. And, that is true. So true. So here where we see it in the fitness industry is, bar exercise and then fusion. So we're going to put Pilates with bar work, or we're going to put Pilates with yoga, or we're going to do weights with yoga. I mean, did you jump on any of those? No judgment, good or bad. But there may be a reason why you did or you did not. Talking about that. What are the trends and how do they solve a problem or create one? Being able to talk about it. Trends and fads exist for a reason. You want to be able to break this apart. What is the reason they exist, right? So one of the things that happens this time of year right now, in fact, the survey is out, probably just coming back in to be collected and tallied, is the American College of Sports Medicine's annual survey of trainers and fitness professionals. And it's used so wrongly. So everyone gets their hands on this, journalists of all types. And then they say, these are the trending things for 2023. And all those trending things mean the purpose of the survey is to help fitness business owners be more profitable. All they're telling people is what people are demanding and asking. It doesn't mean these are the best things for people. If they want A, B, and C, they should be doing D, E, and F. That's not it. It's just saying everybody is loving bar right now. It's one of the biggest trends. And so there's sometimes some good news coming back in those trends because we are seeing more older adult programming. We're seeing more older adults doing one-on-one training, and yet HIT is up or HIT is down, CrossFit is up or CrossFit is down. These are trends, but what you want to do is be able to spot them, be able to know why they're there, really there, and maybe you relay that information to your audience and you say how you answer uniquely. This is what sets your brand as your brand. So, and if there are things that you just don't agree with, like this is really not the best use of time for my people. Somebody who wants bone density needs to stop frailty and muscle loss, probably better not be spending an hour 3 times a week at a bar class, do you think? Right? I mean, is that the best use of their time? I would say no. You might argue that's your post right there. That is your brand, but you want to have the answer to it. And it is okay for us to disagree. Okay, last but not least, this is the 7th thing. Choose a niche and stay in it. Don't try to be everything to everybody, even within your niche of working with menopausal women. If you're working with women in midlife, don't try to be the end all expert in not just the fitness and the exercise and the programming and the how to, but try to also say, and here's how you should eat, and here's how you sleep best, and here's how you. Now, I will tell you this. So coming back, you may say, that's very hypocritical because you still got it, girl. The After 50 Fitness Formula for Women and the signature course we have that came after that include all of those pieces. Yes. And in that book, at the end of every chapter, I had another expert come in and do their own end to it. Dan Ritchie, Cody Sipes did one on strength training. Dr. Michael Bruce contributed to the chapter on sleep. Brian Seward contributed to the chapter on stress, and so on. So it's very important that you don't try to come across as you know it all and you have everything you need here with me. Don't listen to any other expert. You want to be able to collaborate with other people who know more about a topic than you. And you want to be the go-to about your specific topic. It takes a village, and you want to make sure you're building one with collaborative partners. If you're reluctant to interview somebody because you think you know more, or you think differently, I mean, really think that through. Is it that you're only going to choose to look at the research that gives the answers that you want, and then you throw out the others? I mean, unless you're looking at the research and say, well, all studies are not created equal. And here's why this one is actually not valid. But yet talking about that is talking openly about it is probably a better idea than just hiding or burying a study that you don't like. So if you do that too, it doesn't mean that they can't be a partner for you. I'll give you one example of this, and that is a friend of mine, Stu Schaefer, is a personal trainer, and he works specifically with women and weight loss, and he works with men too. But you might think, well, He's got a nutrition program, he's got a strength training program, and he's targeting women in midlife. Why would you send him traffic? Well, at some point, not every woman who decides to stay in my community will want to take a next step with me. For whatever reasons, the words I've used, the tone of voice, the rate of speech, maybe something just doesn't feel like a good fit. Or it's not quite as unique and structured and custom and one-on-one and hand-holding as they want. And so if they haven't gotten started doing something with me, because I don't know, of course, if they started something else, I'm going to put them in front of Stu, or put Stu in front of them and give him the opportunity, because we're all here to help people. So Stu and I have a collaborative affiliate relationship. So in the same way that you can become an affiliate for Flipping 50, I do the same. And Stu and I actually have a reciprocal kind of collaboration that way. And it works very well. So when I've taken people through, promotions for a certain amount of time, then I will then send them something about Stu, and be willing to do that, because it's a win-win-win. You win because people on your list who hadn't bought anything buy something. You get some commission from that. Your collaborative partner loves that. They now have more clients or customers. Your customer is now getting served, and they weren't before. All good things. If you go deep in, say, health coaching, and your clients are still going to need very specific exercise support, you could collaborate with someone like me, with another person who whether it's locally or virtually, who you love what they do, and why wouldn't you promote that? If you, for instance, you're a trainer and you go deep in the exercise, you provide all of that one-on-one or in groups, a combination. Your clients still need the nutrition and or the lifestyle habits. They may need a coach. And if you're not qualified or don't have the time and desire, maybe the other reason why you don't do that, you can collaborate with someone who offers that kind of training. You will end up probably working with somebody who is interested in doing something else that you don't do, which might be they really want to train for triathlon. There are two separate entities here, like triathlon training overall and the muscle and strength and conditioning coaching that happens for the exercise. The literal how to, and during a session, here's what you should do and do it in this order, and here's how you progress, versus the overall how we put together the swimming and the biking and the running and the skills, and in the order and training volume that you're going to use. And very different. You can collaborate in that way as well. All right, there you have it. A quick review of all of those things are this: 7 things that will make you more profitable if you can do them well. Look objectively at your right numbers. Train holistically. It's more than movement. Create simple messages from a complex set of information. Be able to break down exactly the what and the why and the how of information your prospects need. Be willing to be seen and be heard imperfectly. And be able to spot trends and solve problems, maybe that the trends bring on, or maybe that the trends solve. And then last is choose a niche and really stay in it. And don't be afraid to bring other people in who feel like they're very similar. There's always going to be some overlap. I have nutrition expert friends who also do exercise, but they bring me in. They offer my program as a bonus. They promote, they affiliate for me. And likewise, I will do the same. They are the expert that I promote for. So I'm going to mention a couple of the resources I talked about earlier. So I will lead you and give you the link to the Business Scorecard podcast to give your business right now a checkup. And you can go right to the scorecard too, in fact, if you'd rather do that. And if you happen to be training women in midlife, the Flipping 50 Menopause Fitness Specialist directory is growing with trainers and health coaches every day who are training in person and virtually all over the world. The advanced specialist option is the only one that's included that directory is included for, and it allows lifetime access to the Facebook group as long as you're an active contributor, and licensed use to dozens of worksheets customizable with your contact information for 2 years after you join. And after that, you have the option of renewing with proof of your continuing education credits. We provide 2 courses, and you stay in for just a nominal fee. So that's also going to be in the show notes. And what are you waiting for? This is the time to really be looking at getting quiet. What do you want your year to look like? What are your dreams for your business and your vision for it? And then create it. The world needs you right now more than ever. This will be in the show notes at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/7 things.